There is a specific kind of exhaustion that only hits people who love God deeply. Not the person who never prays, not the person who walked away from their faith, but the person doing everything right, serving on every team, saying yes to every need, showing up early and staying late, all in the name of God. And somewhere in the middle of all that faithful effort, they wake up one day and realize they can't remember the last time they actually felt close to Him. This is the Martha trap. And it's one of the most dangerous, least talked about spiritual traps in the entire Christian life, because it doesn't look like sin, it looks like devotion. Let's go back to the actual story, because the details matter more than we usually give them credit for. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus and his disciples arrive at the home of two sisters, Martha and Mary. Martha welcomes him in, which already tells you something about her heart. She's hospitable, generous, willing to open her home to the Lord. This isn't a story about a bad person. This is a story about a good person who's about to learn something hard. While Martha is in the kitchen, cooking, preparing, making sure everything is perfect for her honored guest, her sister Mary does something on the surface looks almost disrespectful. She sits down right at Jesus' feet and she just listens. No serving, no preparing, no checking if the bread is ready, just presence, just attention, just being there. Picture Martha glancing into the room every few minutes, watching her sister sit there while she's juggling pots and pans alone. The tension builds with every trip back and forth, and finally, she can't hold it in anymore. She marches up to Jesus and says something remarkably honest. "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." Notice what's actually happening in that sentence. Martha isn't just asking for help with dinner. She's questioning whether Jesus even cares about her. Do you not care? That's the language of someone who feels invisible, someone who has been pouring herself out in service and has started to wonder if anyone, even God, notices the cost. And here's where the story turns in a direction most of us don't expect. Jesus doesn't rebuke Mary for being lazy. He doesn't tell her to get up and help her sister. Instead, he turns toward Martha with what sounds like less a correction and more like a tender diagnosis. "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." Say her name twice like that, Martha, Martha, and you hear something other than rebuke. You hear concern. This is how Jesus talks to someone he loves, who's about to burn herself out without even realizing it. So let's ask the real question. What exactly is the trap here? Because on paper, Martha did nothing wrong. She served, she worked hard, she honored her guest. If we're honest, most churches would praise Martha. She'd be the one everyone thanks in the announcements, the reliable one, the one who always shows up. The trap isn't that Martha served. The trap is that her serving became a substitute for her presence. She was so busy doing things for Jesus that she completely stopped being with Jesus, even though he was sitting in the very next room. This is the exact danger for anyone deeply involved in ministry, church work, or Christian service today. You can spend your entire week doing things labeled Christian, teaching a class, leading worship, organizing an event, serving on a team, and somehow reach Sunday night having had zero actual connection with God the entire time. Not because you were doing something wrong, but because doing became a replacement for being. Activity for God quietly swallowed intimacy with God. Here's how the trap usually forms, step by step, because it rarely happens all at once. First, it starts with genuine devotion. You serve because you love God, and that's real. Second, the serving starts producing visible results, gratitude from others, a sense of purpose, maybe even recognition, and your identity slowly starts attaching itself to the role instead of the relationship. Third, resentment creeps in quietly, the same resentment Martha felt, because serving without abiding is exhausting, and exhaustion always eventually turns into bitterness, even toward the people and the God you're serving. And fourth, and this is the most dangerous stage, you start believing your value to God is tied to your output. If you stop serving, you feel spiritually irrelevant, like you disappear from his attention entirely. That belief is a lie straight from the enemy of your soul. Because notice what Jesus never once mentions in this entire story. He never measures Martha's worth by her productivity. He never says her cooking wasn't appreciated. He simply says one thing is necessary.
And that one thing was never a task, it was attention. So how do you know if you've fallen into the Martha trap yourself? Ask a few honest questions. When was the last time you sat with God with absolutely nothing to accomplish? No lesson to prepare, no worship set to plan, no prayer list to work through, just presence for presence sake. If you can't remember, that's worth paying attention to. Do you feel guilty when you're not serving, like resting is somehow wasting time God could be using you for? That guilt is often a sign that your relationship with God has quietly become transactional instead of relational. And when you imagine God looking at you right now, do you picture him pleased with your output? Or do you picture him simply glad you're near him, whether you're producing anything or not? The good news in this story is that Jesus doesn't ask Martha to stop serving forever. He's not condemning work, ministry, or hospitality. He's correcting the order. Presence first, then service flows out of that presence, not instead of it. When you're actually abiding with him, your serving stops draining you and starts becoming an overflow of something that's already full. Practically, this week, try this. Before you do one more task for God, sit with him first, even for 5 unhurried minutes. If you're in ministry or serving regularly, ask yourself honestly whether you've been running on the fumes of obligation instead of the fuel of genuine connection. And if so, be willing to pull back long enough to refill. And the next time you feel that Martha-like resentment building, that "does anyone even see what I'm carrying" feeling, let it be a signal not to serve harder, but to sit down at his feet like Mary did. Because here's the truth this whole story is built around. God was never impressed by Martha's meal. He was moved by Mary's attention. And the same is true for you. You were never meant to earn his presence through your productivity. You already have it. The invitation right now is simply to stop, put the plate down for a moment, and remember that the good portion, the one thing that actually matters, was never taken away from anyone who chose it. If you've been living like Martha lately, hear this gently. It's not too late to sit down. Put something down today and give him 5 honest, unhurried minutes. If this spoke to you, drop "choosing the good portion" in the comments below. If you know someone caught in the exhausting cycle of serving without resting, send this to them. And if you want more truths like this, subscribe to Spirit the Jesus. Let's stop losing God in the name of serving him and start choosing presence over productivity. I'll see you in the next one.